Welcome to Find Myself Free, the podcast. I'm Ellie Young, alcohol-free life coach, mom, and athlete. I'm dedicated to helping others change their relationship to alcohol by sharing my journey of transformation. Fascinated by my own capacity for change after decades of gray area drinking, I'm passionate about sharing what I've learned from neuroscience and positive psychology to help you break free from the drinking cycle and unlock your true potential. Hear my personal stories of triumph and struggle as I navigate raising two boys, finding myself after 40, building a business, and doing it all alcohol-free. From women's health and cycle syncing to fasting and biohacking, this podcast is your roadmap to a healthier, purpose-filled life that starts with changing your relationship to alcohol. It's time to embrace change, find balance, and create the life you were meant for. Welcome to Find Myself Free. Hey, everybody. Before we get to the show, I wanted to invite you to check out my new free resource. It's called Breaking Up with Booze. Check out the link in my show notes. But essentially, this is just a free guide where I break down the two most common beliefs that are keeping women stuck in the drinking cycle. Now, I know what you need. You want to feel confident socializing alcohol-free. You want to be able to manage your stress, but without the crutch of alcohol. And ultimately, we all want to experience joy and connection without the hangover. So this is a completely free resource that you should check out, Breaking Up with Booze, because I know you are finally ready to level up your health. So check it out today. Head on over to my show notes and get the link. I hope to see you there. Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce that I am now an AG1 ambassador, and I wanted to share with you why I'm so passionate about this amazing product. AG1 has become a key part of my daily routine. Every morning, I start with my day with a scoop of AG1, which is packed with 75 high-quality ingredients, including vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and adaptogens. It's all about giving my body what it needs to feel its best. Personally, one of the biggest benefits I've experienced has been immune system support. I've noticed that when I'm traveling or life is hectic and I'm not taking as good of care of myself, I feel better when I'm taking AG1, and I have peace of mind that I'm getting comprehensive nutrition to support my busy lifestyle. Another benefit I've loved is how AG1 supports my metabolism. I've noticed that as my cycle and hormones fluctuate, I have less cravings, I feel less bloated because I'm supporting my microbiome. As an ambassador, I'm thrilled to offer you an exclusive deal that you can't get anywhere else. This is literally the best deal that they offer, and it's only available through ambassadors like myself. With your first purchase as a new customer, you'll get a free 1-year supply of D3K2 drops to support your immune system, 10 free AG1 travel packs, and a 30-day supply of omega-3 pills. Wow. So I've really enjoyed how easy it is to make AG1 part of my daily routine, and I think you will too. If you're ready to start your journey to better health, check out in the show notes my ambassador link and make sure you purchase through that to receive my ambassador deal. If you'd like to try a few samples beforehand, you can always email me at Ellie, ELLY, at findmyselffree.com, and I have some samples that I can send you. Now, on to the show. Hey, everybody. Today's guest is a good one, especially this time of year where sugar is everywhere on top of alcohol, right? So Mike Collins believes sugar addiction is very real and not to be taken lightly. As a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder for over 39 years, he took a keen interest in what sugar was doing to him and his friends in early recovery. I can totally relate. After much research and experimentation, he quit sugar with the help of amazing mentors. He then raised 2 children sugar-free from the womb to 6 years old, and as they grew, he rewrote the rules for sugar and kids in childhood. Wow. He takes his stewardship of sugaraddiction.com and quitsugarsummit.com very seriously and aims to provide information and community for anyone wanting to curb or quit sugar. Hundreds of thousands have read his book, The Last Resort Sugar Detox, and tens of thousands have completed his online 30-day sugar freedom challenge. Please welcome Mike Collins to the show. Hi, Mike, and welcome to Find Myself Free. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you today?
I'm
Thanks
pretty
for having me.
good.
Appreciate it.
Yes. I'm so glad you found me and reached out. I think we have a lot of people who are going to be really interested in what you have to say today. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the sugar-free man. I uh years ago I got sober and I just didn't like what sugar was doing to me. Basically, sugar and caffeine, really. I actually quit caffeine first. And it's a pretty easy story. I was working in a restaurant and this is even when I was still drinking, but I would see the people come up to the counter that worked there who could get their caffeine drinks free, whether it was coffee or Coca-Cola. And it didn't matter if it was the busboy or the 60-year-old chef. The people that drank the most caffeine, I noticed, had dark circles under their eyes. I'm like, what the hell? So that was one of my first recognitions of substances. This is, like I said, before I quit drinking. And I just recognized it and I just started paying attention to it. So I quit caffeine right after I got sober. I uh, I quit the caffeine. Well, not right after, but a while after that, and then the sugar, and then flour after that. But it was just a progression that I started. It started years ago with my mother. My mother just loved sugar. You know what I mean? She thought sugar was love, genuinely. And that's an important theme of what we'll be talking about today is this emotional management that we've outsourced to sugar. And you mentioned my book, and it's like the last resort is truly the last house on the block. This is folks who biochemically are addicted to sugar. They can't ingest the stuff without setting up cravings for more. And abstinence is hard. It's hard in alcohol, but it's an important part of the process, just as a test, right? I only have one job in life. That's to get whoever, your audience, yourself, whoever, to just see 90 days of abstinence, and then you make the decision. I'm not here to tell you you're an addict, but in today's world with all the science today, we know that sugar is not good for you, period. And every diet book ever written says this. But a lot of people, I call it the compliance issue. We have weight loss clinics and diabetes clinics and, dentists and doctors. They can, fitness people, they can tell someone to quit sugar, but about a third of their patients can't. And they start to get frustrated. Okay, so they've built a pretty nice practice on 2/3, but a third of their folks can't do it without this additional help, which at the end of the day, the reason I reach out to recovery podcasts is very similar to drug and alcohol recovery. Okay. It's the program is the same. It's like a codependency recovery program. It's a how to, understand what you were covering up, what you were tamping down, what you were blunting, what emotions you were blunting. It has absolutely, this is hard for people to grasp because they've been brainwashed by the diet industry. It has absolutely nothing to do with eat less and exercise more. Weight loss, which is what most people come to me for originally now.
Right.
And then they start to realize that they've tried for decades, some of them, and, they just can't seem to put this down. And the crazy part is because I'm pretty open about my drug and alcohol recovery, I had like hundreds, probably it was of 1,000 now, recovering people. These are people that quit alcohol and drugs, but could not put down the sugar,
Mhm.
right? They've tried everything, right? And they're addiction savvy. I mean, they understand addiction and what it did in their life, but they just have not yet been able to go there. And really, to be honest, in their favor, the science has gotten very clear over the last 3 or 4 years. It's just now proving that this is a very powerful psycho. Actually, it hasn't proved that. I've proved this to myself, but it is a very powerful psychoactive drug that requires, if you've fallen into the addiction category, the same recovery that you would do for any kind of substance, substance use disorder. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a short version. I could answer any questions around that, but
Yeah.
kind of how I got here.
Yeah, no, I definitely see a strong correlation between, alcohol dependency, addiction, whatever you want to call it. And that most people immediately shift into like some type of cross addiction when they do. And I even say in my coaching that it's really, really hard to ask somebody to stop drinking and then also do any type of diet at that
Right.
same time. It's
Yeah.
really, it's kind of like I step women down. Really, we focus on getting alcohol free first. And
Yeah.
then my next phase is to try and help people balance their hormone health, which a huge component of that is to eliminate sugar and processed foods and all
Yeah.
the toxins in our environment. Um, but you're right. And I think so much of the relationship, like people know alcohol is bad, yet we're so conditioned to drink it and conditioned to think it's safe and it's so normalized to do all sorts of levels of drinking, binge drinking and whatnot. Sugar is probably even more normalized and conditioned into us from such a young age. I see this relationship a lot with my kids that, and you're going to have to tell us, we'll back up to this, but at some point I want to table the fact that you raised your children sugar free until the age of 6, which
Yeah.
is amazing. So we'll come back to that. But when I want to reward my kids, and I think everybody does this,
Yeah.
you're like, if you're a good boy, if you eat all your dinner, then you get to have this prize, right? The prize of the sugar, the treat, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And as adults, we do that with alcohol. Like, oh, when you get through the hard work week, then you get to have the drinks at the end of the day. Then you get to have happy hour. We even call it happy hour. So this
Right.
correlation between food and or sugar and alcohol being a reward, that being so conditioned into us, and I'm curious about your methodology. Is that where, your framework, the work that you do to help people, does it stem from the neuroplasticity of changing these subconscious like attachments and beliefs about sugar?
110%. Like, I don't know about beliefs because the beliefs are a little warped out there,
Yeah.
but definitely the neuroplasticity.
Hmm.
Um, you know, let me back up a little bit. So basically, what has come to the fore in the last 3 or 4 years is this idea of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. I mean, now everybody knows what dopamine is. And when I say dopamine, I want to clarify it's a catch-all term because everybody knows what it is now, or at least I've heard of it. But I mean dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, oxytocin, adrenal glands, endorphins, cannabinoid receptors, all of the brain and body reward chemicals are affected by sugar and not in a positive way. Okay. In dopamine, it's downregulated, thinned out. You have less dopamine receptors when you abuse sugar or alcohol or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have grooved a neural pathway in your brain that is your go-to method of self-soothing. This is the key to this entire process that we do. It's you groove this pathway that now think about it. It's a very common construct in the world of alcohol and drugs that if you started using alcohol and drugs at 14 or 15, you stop growing emotionally. Okay. Your life's upside down, your relationships, because you never solved any problems. About 4 o'clock the next day, when you started thinking about the problems or they came resurfaced, you just numbed out. Now,
Hmm.
extrapolate that backwards to a child, probably in the womb, but definitely 3, 4, 5 years old. Their parents were probably part of this where they were busy and they just gave them a cookie and sent them to the television, right? Well, this little brain and this body, this neuroplastic brain gets a touch of soothe. The reason they call it comfort food for a reason, the reason the term emotional eating came to be, which is total, the recovery from emotional eating is total BS. And we can get into that if you want. But at the end of the day, we have outsourced our emotional management this is almost the entire world now,
Mhm.
to a substance, okay, starting at a very young age, right? And so here we are, 40, 50, 60 years later, people are like, when they attempt an abstinence, and most of them have never attempted even 2 days of abstinence,
Mhm.
or they've tried and they've, muscled a week or muscled a month and lost 5 or 10 pounds, but they always fell back, right? And the reason that is because they probably things were going okay when they first started the diet or first started to change and got some abstinence. But when something comes up, anything, finances, a relationship, kids, whatever, a spouse, they don't say to themselves like, I need a beer on a Friday afternoon because I had a rough week. They don't, that's not the thought that goes through their head. They just say, I feel like a soda, or I feel like a candy bar, or whatever. And then they're off. If I heard that story once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Then they're back to the races. Okay. And it's this inability to understand, to connect this emotional management
Mhm.
to the food. And the mouth is just a delivery system. Like a needle is an injection point, that's the delivery system. Alcohol happens to be delivered through the mouth too, cannabis through the smoke. But this is just a delivery system for a psychoactive drug, okay? That we took an evolutionary wrong turn about 300 or 400 years ago, and a perfect storm was created. Just like tobacco, a perfect storm of marketers, nothing against them. They had a job to do. They did the best they could, and they maximized shareholder value. And as a result, we have, since the 1970s and 80s, when high fructose corn syrup hit the market, we went from cocaine to crack. Okay. And this is why the obesity numbers go straight up from the 80s to now. Okay. And are
Right.
continuing to go up. And children are have fatty liver and they're obese, whatever. So yes, at the end of the day, this entire program is around the brain and the brain's it's more the emotional life, but it's the reward system, that little bit of soothing you get.
Yeah.
And like any drug, 20 minutes later, you got to do it again, right?
Right.
And people don't understand it because it's very ubiquitous, very almost free. A child can score it.
Yeah.
People have never put these two things together. We talked before we came on, but oh no, I said it earlier, is that even recovering people, I mean, it's twice in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that you should use sugar to help you come down off of alcohol. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's just old. It's old science, is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I go back to the great Gabor Mate. I believe he's the one who termed that addiction is a comfort-seeking ritual.
Mm.
And if you're not, as most of the women I know were using wine to cope with the stresses of motherhood,
Yep.
and then they start to lean on food. It's funny, women as we grow, and we're in our teen years and there's a lot of insecurities, we somehow start to demonize food and sugar. A lot of women learn this early on, like don't eat the donuts, don't eat the cookies, don't eat the cake, because we're all trying to be skinny and, live
Yep.
up to this ideal, right? But then alcohol enters the picture and it numbs those insecurities and lets us come out of our shell and feel beautiful and feel sexy, confident, funny, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then we struggle with that. Then alcohol leaves the scene if you're smart and you're, doing what's right for your body. And then food comes back in, food and sugar comes back in and fills that void. So we really did nothing. And so I do coach so much about this, understanding what is the root cause. And I talk about it as beliefs because there's some sort of belief in like, I can't comfort myself unless I have these things. And you're right, it's subconscious. It's not something that they're like actively thinking about. It's just this craving comes up and they want to numb out. We use sugar to numb out. I still, as much as I know about diet, nutrition, addiction, dependency, all these things, I still, when I have a really bad, stressful day, I find myself wanting to like self-sabotage with food. And I know it as it's happening. That's why
Mm.
like I've pretty much eliminated sugar from my life. And I'm curious, I want to know what your limits to the sugar range are here because are you talking about not fructose, right? Or where we can still have fruit, regular fruit?
You're going there, huh? You
And
want
then
to? You
The
want
other,
to,
I'll add on to that real quick here, but I also want to know, so is this refined sugar? Is this fructose? Is this sugar substitutes? Like, I don't like the sugar alcohols, like the sucralose and things like that. But what about stevia? What about monk fruit? And then what's the newer one is allulose? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I get a lot of pushback on this, and you have to think of it as, well, think of this near beer thing. You know what that is? So
Yes.
this alcohol-free beer. They're not going to suggest that in treatment. I'll put it to you that way. And your sponsor or anyone that's helping you with alcohol is not going to suggest you substitute alcohol-free beer. So we can knock out I'll try and do it in some sort of order, but at the end of the day, it's the sweet taste that we have to move away from. Okay, which means all of the fake sugars, the chemical experiments. When the brain gets the sweet taste or the sweet idea, it says almost immediately, where's the calories? And
Hmm.
the cravings for sugar continue. Here's the thing. Who the hell wants to do this if you're continuing to crave? You want freedom, you want peace, okay? Now let's tackle the fructose part of it, all right? So fructose is likely the culprit in all this, okay? Because for your audience and people that don't know, the table sugar molecule is half glucose and half fructose, right? But it's processed fructose. That's number one. It's like the difference between a coca leaf, which is like having a cup of coffee if you chew it, and cocaine or crack, which is highly processed. Okay. That's the difference for the table sugar. Now, the fruit stuff is, again, I get a lot of pushback on this, but here's the most important part of it, or one of the most important parts of it, is that the fructose molecule in the fruit is identical to the fructose molecule in the table sugar. The two are not different. It's not like there's a different, it's not processed in any way different. It's the same. The molecule is the same. Okay. Now, my personal theory and belief, and this is backed up by a bunch of scientists who I've asked point blank on my Quit Sugar Summits, is that fructose is a psychoactive drug. Okay. Fructose, we only got fructose in 10 million years of evolution once or twice a year. That's it. When the fruit was at its peak ripeness, and animals and humans will take massive risks. They'll go into territories they're not supposed to go into. They create something what's called a foraging creates foraging behaviors, right? When you start to ingest fructose, because it's cheap calories, okay? You don't have to do much work for it when it's at the height or when you get a little bit of honey, right? And so if you extrapolate this a little bit further, once or twice a year becomes 24/7 drip of the stuff from both fruit and sugar, table sugar with, the processed stuff. And fruit, all of it has been hybridized. Nuts have been hybridized. Vegetables have been hybridized. Okay. All of these things have been hybridized to take the bitterness out or to make these giant fructose bombs. Seedless grapes, seedless watermelons, seedless oranges, things that could not recreate nature have been hybridized so that they have all of this sweetness, right? And it only keeps the cravings alive. I repeat, who the heck wants to do this if they're going to crave the stuff, right? And again, people fight with me back and forth, like, oh, it's only fruit and you should have it, and you should have fiber, and you should have this and that and the other. But at the end of the day, it keeps the cravings alive. Okay. It keeps you thinking about it. You don't get to peace, right?
Hmm.
And so it's controversial, but again, I only ask you to do this for 90 days and let you decide. I'm not going to decide for you. Your skin's going to be better. There's going to be weight loss. Your brain. I'm going to tell you an interesting statistic is that I've had hundreds of 100-pound weight loss, hundreds of type 2 diabetes remissions, lupus, chronic fatigue. Rheumatoid arthritis is a paper tiger. It's like anybody that quits sugar, their hands and knees stop hurting. I've had people not get operations, their knee operations, after they quit for 90 days. Okay. But all of them say the exact same thing when we do surveys. It's that their best benefit, the most above type 2 remission, above 100 pounds of weight loss, is that their brain came back online.
Mhm.
They started to focus better. They started to remember better. The anxiety is lessened. So there's huge changes that happen when you let go of the fructose and when you let go of the sugar itself. But again, there's no like, I'm not a boot camp. I'm not going to tell you to do anything. I'm going to suggest what thousands of people have had success with, and
Right.
that is to at the very least, cut way back on the fructose and use, a handful of berries, raspberries, blueberries, and stuff, the low fructose, low glycemic stuff to get you through the first couple of days or weeks, right? And then,
Right.
so again, I don't want them to suffer and have the cravings just because everybody gives in to them. It's a powerful, I think when the diagnostic tools are created in 100 years, 50 years, it's going to prove out that sugar, in a weird way, is a better soothing agent than any substance, pharma or alcohol, that's ever been created on the brain and the body. Okay. Obviously, we can't prove that yet, but it's just, it's evolving that way. And again, there's a new fructose study comes out every day. So,
Yeah. I would push back a little bit on some of the fructose stuff. I think for people with the severe like addictions that really truly can't stop, and you could say the same thing with alcohol and whatnot. Like I I don't deal with it like chemical addictions, like true, like people that need to be like chemically detoxed in hospitals. I have most people in this kind of gray area of drinking,
yeah,
right? And so
sure.
I'm okay with mocktails and non-alcoholic beers in that regard. Um, but for someone who I think has the more severe chemical dependency, I think you have to get completely away from any sort of trigger, any sort of memory of it.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Same thing with the fructose and whatnot. Um, but I'm curious, in your methodology here, is there anything that kind of pays attention to the woman's cycle? So a lot of what I do also after getting out of the alcohol dependency is we work on hormone balancing, and women are more vulnerable to craving alcohol, to craving sugar throughout different phases of their cycle. They're more sensitive to dopamine during ovulation. Their dopamine receptors are like enhanced. So riskier behavior, whether that means, pursuing alcohol, pursuing drugs, pursuing sugar, peaks at different times, specifically ovulation, and then also the like 8 days right before a woman's cycle starts. And so I wonder if you have anything, because I like to do, not only do I like to do the mindset work, which it sounds like you do a lot of that, is
Yeah.
the emotional side of things, but also we need like habitual things that you can really put into practice that are kind of for women, it always has to be through the lens of our cycle. What is our cycle doing? When are we more vulnerable? And our hormones actually need different nutrients. When estrogen is peaking in the first half of the cycle, a low carbohydrate, low sugar, ketogenic diet is ideal. But in the back half of our cycle, when progesterone is peaking, we naturally have higher blood glucose. We crave more glucose. And it's in order to produce progesterone, which allows us to have a healthy cycle. And so eliminating sugar completely, refined sugar, but I'm okay with, obviously we want to have more carbohydrate during this time, and we do incorporate more of like the tropical citrus fruits during this phase that are a little higher in sugar naturally. I'm just
Right.
curious if you have anything that addresses that through, because it sounds like a lot of your clients are in that kind of perimenopausal,
Yes.
postmenopausal phase. Yeah.
Well, I mean, definitely there are higher cravings at different times in the cycle for women who aren't yet menopausal yet. But here's the thing. I don't know where it happened, but I love the phrase, what is it? Create your vision and play with who shows up. So who showed up was, I like to say women 40 to 90, but it's really women 50 to 90. It's almost all of them. They're at least very close to menopause or in menopause, where their insulin sensitivity goes up and all this kind of stuff. And I think they've suffered over the years and finally realized that sugar is the why they can't do any diet, they can't change, they can't do anything. It's their Achilles heel.
Mhm.
and they're ready finally. Okay. So uh it's definitely, I think it's worse for after it's harder for them to lose some weight. But it's a real thing. I mean, it's definitely part of the process. Women change, and I think they, at least for us, they seek help at that point. You know what I mean? They seek because they think about it now. This is not sexist in any way, but it's kind of the good girls drug. Men drink and women use sugar, right? And they have struggled over the years with body image and weight and whatever. And they just finally got to the point where they can't do it anymore. Their weight is a problem, their health is a problem, and sugar's the problem. So, yeah, I mean, it's a real thing, and you have to pay attention to it. Men, when they do, it's only about 5% of our business or our client base. They lose weight a lot faster, and some of them can stick to it. Their addiction thing is pretty much no different, but they don't have the secular, the cycles. So it's better for them, a little easier sometimes.
In your experience, do you see like what type of people are more prone to sugar addiction? Is it similar to, traditional substance addictions that there's some type of trauma or like ACE, you're saying it's tied to like emotional eating and whatnot, but is that usually stemming from some type of trauma
Well,
or is it genetic?
it's so funny that you mentioned Gabor Mate. He's one of my heroes. It's like, um, the answer to the question is that, it's almost always, in my opinion, the whatever they're like when I do an intake call, I got to find out. The most difficult clients are clients who were overweight, and overweight is only a gauge. It's only one of the markers, but it's a good marker. When they were overweight, when they were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, husky, never really had a thin body to fall back on.
Mhm.
The easier quote unquote clients are people who were a norm, the weight that they want to get back to, let's put it that way, uh, in high school and college. They have a memory of it. They've gained 1 or 2 or 3 pounds a year for 20, 30, 40 years, and now they want to get back. Those are a little easier to deal with. But at the end of the day, exactly what you said is correct. While we're not trauma experts, we are very trauma informed. And what happens, and this is the message of the entire podcast. It takes about the arc of a podcast for me to explain what the phenomena is. And the phenomena is when someone goes abstinence, like I said, they may have muscled it, they may have exercised a lot, so they had some self-soothing going on when they thought they were quote unquote burning calories, which is total BS. But what they were doing is they were soothing themselves through the running or the exercise, right? And so if they don't understand, if they don't grasp this concept that they have to relearn their emotional life, what happens when people get 5, 10, 15 days is the common refrain is, Mike, I'm losing my mind, is because the emotions start to well. And that's not just, and it doesn't have to be physical abuse, capital T, trauma, or sexual abuse. It can be just you were bullied or your boyfriend broke up with you. You never worked all the way through it, right? And today's stressors, the kids, the job, the spouse, the whole thing, we just never learned how to meditate or go to yoga, get a massage, get a hug, cook, watch a sunset, make love, whatever, something different besides a substance. We just never develop these skills.
Mhm.
And there's hundreds of ways. Just Google, self-care. You can,
Right.
the ways to do, to feel better. And when they do, and all of a sudden, this is the reason, the statistics as well as I do. 95% of all people that lose any amount of weight gain it all back in the first year, and then they add some. And the
Mhm.
reason that happens in my world is very simple. The first of the year, when you give up the sugar and everything's going great, the kids are okay, the husband's okay, the job's okay, everything's going okay. 4 months in, you've worked hard, you've cut back, you've exercised, you've used exercise as your self-soothing, something comes up, whatever, somebody dies or you get a divorce, whatever, anything. And you just have one. And then you're off to the races again because now you're self-soothing again with this product. Okay. And if you don't understand this cycle and break it and learn new ways to self-soothe, then you never get out of the problem. Okay. You're never going to you can't outrun it. I have a coach who's a marathon runner who does 100 miles a week still. When she
Wow.
first came to me, she was 15 pounds overweight. She couldn't run it off. Right. And they were giving them the goo and, they're carb loading and all this other crap. And now the 15 pounds are gone. And it was all this little tweak of, you know, think about your emotional life. I always actually tell people when they crave sugar after they got a little bit of abstinence is to sit down, take a deep breath, and ask themselves, even call themselves, dear, what do you really need, dear? What's going on with you? Most people aren't used to this type of practice. They don't do it that way. They have just, it's so easy to get, so ubiquitous, they can just have a soda or have a candy or have a cookie and
Right.
it goes away and they didn't finish. Like somebody dies or somebody breaks up with you, you don't process this in a day or two. It takes weeks, months, years sometimes. I find people, this is a crazy part about, how hard is this question you asked is like, people have 20 years of talk therapy that come to me, 20 years of going for 50 minutes, and they know everything about diet, nutrition, and their inner child and every other dang thing. But on the way home at the 7-Eleven, they end the work, the deep crying work that they did with the therapist. They never finished the process. They never worked through their emotional stuff, right?
Mhm.
And you have to do this. Some people need to go to therapy. They need to add therapy to their program after they get their abstinence, right?
Mhm.
So it's not rocket science, but it's a little different than eat less and exercise more, which is what people have been brainwashed by the $78 billion diet industry.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think self-care, and it's a very trendy kind of word right now, and a lot of people think it means wine and Netflix or zoning out and scrolling on your phone. And
Right.
and the catch with self-care is that it requires work. I think at the end of the day, people don't want to have to work for it. When there's just this easy button you can hit with alcohol or sugar, and you get this flood of, dopamine, norepinephrine, all the feel-good chemistry, and it's short-lived, and then it creates that craving cycle, that craving loop, and you're never satiated. I know with myself, and again, what I love is I love doing the mindset work, but I also really like the scientific part about this. Like, why is it that my gut bacteria is craving sugar? And
Yeah.
one of the best remedies that I helped me beat my sugar addiction. I wouldn't say I had a severe addiction, but it took me probably 2 years into my sobriety for me to really finally rein in I thought, "Oh, I've done already this super hard thing of cutting alcohol out. I'm gonna let myself have the cookie when I want it or the ice cream or the french fries or whatever thing it was that I thought was kind of the reward."
Mm,
And I had to rein it in because all the initial weight I lost from going alcohol free, which was about 15 pounds, I did slowly gain it back with food. And so
mm,
that's what really led me into the kind of the hormone health and learning how to cycle sync. But it was fasting. It was intermittent fasting and actually doing longer periods of fast that helped me reset my gut bacteria so that I no longer actually craved the sugar laden foods. My body
yeah.
naturally wanted to put good stuff in because on a cellular level, I felt like my nutrients were being met. And I try
Right.
to teach this to my kids all the time. I'm like, when you eat that junk, and you're still hungry and you're still compulsively seeking stuff and it's bedtime and you didn't eat enough dinner and you're like, I want the treat, I want the treat. It's like it's because your cells didn't get what it needed. When anytime you're feeding your cells the sugar, they're like, I don't need this, I'm going to store it as fat. I needed protein, I needed all these other macronutrients that you didn't give me. Sugar is
Right.
completely unnecessary for any function in your body. And so that's where I kind of land is I feel like there's the mental work, but there also has to be this like habitual resetting of the gut lining, the gut chemistry, and also just, so what are the practices that you have people like give us a little rundown of what the program looks like? What is the kind of framework for it?
Yeah, before I do, I want to mention something real quick about intermittent fasting. I'm a big fan, do it myself, usually once or twice a day. Have a pretty big window, do occasional fasting, not so much anymore, trying to gain a little weight. People laugh at me or whatever, but it's like Peter Attia, and there's a bunch of
Mhm.
famous guys now that they're done with the fasting stuff. So, but it's kind of fits me. But in sugar addiction recovery, if you come in with an intermittent fasting program, you can keep it, whatever it is, whatever window you're eating through. But anybody who doesn't has to eat three meals a day. It sets up binge craving level cravings if they don't at the beginning. So that's an important note if they feel like, they might be a sugar addict. And again, it's not my job to tell them they are, it's let them decide. So the framework of what we do is based in support, in peer support. I tell people I built this company backwards, okay? I knew that we needed support. People needed support because when you attempt this, you're the odd man out. You quit cigarettes. Yeah, good job. Quit drinking. Great job. You quit sugar and it's like, what? Why? Rah, rah, rah. You start getting all these ridiculous discussions. And likely someone like I said, some of the women who are responsible for the food around the house have tried to change the family's diet 10 times before. They have a little bit of a credibility issue and they're not on board. 80% of the people we work with do not have spousal support. They're like, I'm not playing no more. The kids aren't playing. And it's really hard. So they need another group. And that peer support is from us between 4 and 5 Zoom meetings every single day of the week, 7 days a week. And they plug into that and they say, huh, finally, people understand like me, like what I've been going through. They're talking openly about it. They're talking openly about it's so funny because 20% of the people that call me for coaching are crying. Okay. They think I've never heard this story before where they threw stuff in the garbage, poured liquid dishwasher liquid over it, and then came back an hour later, cut the dishwashing liquid off and ate it. You know, they think I've never heard this story before, and I've heard it hundreds of times, right? And so we have to set up a place, a safe place where people can be themselves, talk about what they've gone through. They've never told another living soul this. You see these folks that are, 100, 200 pounds overweight, and they say, they eat salads when you meet them, right?
Mhm.
And those are folks who have told me what they really eat, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so we have the meetings and then we have a 30-day detox, which at this juncture is pretty much pattern recognition. It's 20 minutes of me coming in and telling you what's going to happen. I can almost tell per day it is how you're going to feel. Where's the headaches going to be? Where's the lethargy going to be? Where's the irritability going to be? Where's what we were talking about earlier? Where's the Mike, I'm losing my mind going to be? That's like days 5 to 20 or whatever.
Mhm.
I can tell because we've done tens of thousands of these. Okay. And we get them through it and then they just plug into a meeting. My coaches facilitate it. 80% of my coaches have gone through the system. 20% came from the outside and got certified, but the rest were people who just got out of the sugar and wanted to help others, right? And they love it. They don't, some of them don't even get paid. They just want to facilitate a meeting once a week. And so it's really that combination of all these things. Yes, we tell them what to eat. Yes, we tell them, that we don't use exercise for burning calories, but for, self-care. And we teach them self-care processes. But at the end of the day, it's both there's an old book. It's about 25 years old, but it was researched mostly about cigarettes, but it's called Quit or Die. And the basis of Quit or Die is that fear doesn't work and facts don't work. So you're not going to tell them a bunch of facts and then they're going to say, oh, that's great. And I'll just do it. or you're not going to scare them into it. What you have to do is you have to, dare I say, love them into it. You have to have a group of people who have done it before, who are a little bit ahead of you, who are helping you do it. So that's really, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's similar to 12-step stuff and, even in like cancer. So if you had you're a cancer survivor and join a survival group, there's plenty of peer-reviewed studies that say your possibilities of success go through the roof compared to the person who tries to do it alone. And so, that's kind of the basis of who we are and what we do as far as the program itself.
I think it's really powerful. I think community is often the missing piece, finding an accountability partner, finding people that are doing what you want to do and surrounding yourself. Your environments are so important. And
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, we see the exact same thing with alcohol. People don't support not drinking, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Oh, you are definitely an odd man out if you're not drinking during the holidays.
Yeah.
But even more so, like, I'm one of those people where I'm like, oh, I'm teaching you how to not drink, and then I'm teaching you how to intermittent fast. And then we're like, so what fun do you have? And I'm like, I swear you're gonna feel so much better. And that's interesting. You said you can't scare people into it and you can't, give them enough facts. It's a lot of women know this information. And the gap is in the doing, it's in the action. And that's where that neuroplasticity piece of changing how we self-medicate, changing how we cope is so important. And
Yeah.
again, it's another one of those things where you can learn about it and hear about it, but you need that daily support. You really, truly do. And that comes I recommend like the content you're listening to, the groups you're putting yourself in, the mentors, the coaches that you're working with. So tell us a little bit, what do you have going on for everybody that they can kind of get involved and see more about what you're doing?
Um, if you want, real quick before I do that, like, if you want to talk about those kids, I really, one of my goals in life is to get this down to childbearing age women. We discussed who the client is currently, but we've even done a kids summit, a sugar-free kids summit. And, my kids are, and like I said, I visited them over Thanksgiving. Like, I'm a smart enough guy, but like they now have like uh, nonprofits. Well, first, I think one of them is the first 1,000 days. That first 1,000 days from inception to 2 or 3 is so important in brain development. It's growing at such a rapid rate. My boys are like literally rocket scientists smart. Like they perfect scores on their college entrance exams. One of them works for a quantum computer company. It's like this kind of horsepower, given horsepower. And it makes sense when you think about the benefit that I told folks where the brain clears up. And hell, they're calling Alzheimer's diabetes 3. This is a true brain illness. We've talked about it for the whole hour. This is a brain illness, and it's child, in my opinion, my personal opinion, is child abuse to give what the hell? They're not going shopping
Yeah.
at between 1 and 5. They're not going shopping. They're not buying things. My kids didn't even know what candy was until they started going to preschool or whatever. You know what I mean? They had no idea what it was. They had a lot of fruit back then, but I don't know if I would have given them as much today. But yeah, I mean, I just want to stress that because it appears to me that maybe some of your folks are a little younger than my
Yeah.
my ideal client, and they maybe have children or maybe about to have children. So I wanted to kind of get that out. I think it's a super important part of the evolution of the change that, hopefully over the next 20 or 30 years models what happened with tobacco in the United States, so, or in the world.
Yeah, I think that's impressive. I think a lot of people are idealistic about not feeding their kids sugar, and then we lose control of it at some point because of like the birthday parties, the school, the activities. I mean, our kids' sports games, everybody brings a snack after the game, and it's often just like a sugary drink or a sugary. And I just don't know how you did it without having to like restrict your child and like pull them back when the rest of everybody's
It
enjoying it.
was a huge fight. The
Yeah,
Montessori school, the parents of the friends, the grandparents, everybody thought we were depriving them of a childhood, right?
yeah,
They thought that we were being mean, quote unquote, and it's just not the case. And they don't believe that today. I have one grandchild, and that child does not get sugar, because they even asked me the question, Dad, what did you do right? By all accounts, I mean, if I told you the stories of their life today, you'd think I was lying to you, or bragging. It's
Yeah.
like it's just not like possible from two alcoholic families, their wife, their mother, and myself, to have never been intoxicated. I've never seen them intoxicated because they're not drawn to substances as self-soothing. It's just they have other things, they lift weights or whatever, but they're just substances are not what they are attracted to. And I believe this can be learned. I just don't believe anymore about genetic predisposition. Okay. It's a familial in a family. It's a learned behavior.
I agree with that. I do think and I think there's some disagreement out here about that, like the gene factors.
Right.
There are genes that can make you more prone to addiction, but they haven't actually correlated it. They haven't been able to really prove it.
Right.
But the bigger factor is this familial, the culture you're raised in, the ACEs, the traumas you've had. And it really is just the normalizing of sugar, of alcohol in our culture. And
Yeah.
so having to swim upstream in that environment, it's impressive and challenging. And I encourage everybody to go check out what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. When will this air? Just kind of get a context because we
I'm
have
gonna actually try and get it out today
good.
because I think it's relevant for this season right now.
Yeah. So we have on January 6th, our yearly, this will be our 11th or 12th of, I can't even remember. We used to do a couple a year, but for the last 8 years, every January, we've done the Quit Sugar Summit, which is totally free. Just go to quitsugarsummit.com, leave your email, and we'll notify you when it starts. For a week with 50 experts in the world of sugar reduction, sugar addiction, health, wellness, you know, big folks, Ken Berry and Ben Azadi and Robert Lustig. And, just really, I interviewed Jack LaLanne's wife one time, Judy Collins, the famous singer. Really, Jack LaLanne's wife, she's 98. She was funny as hell. She
Mhm.
said, Jack blames sugar for everything, like every kind of illness that you can imagine, right? So anyway, have them check that out. That'd be cool. And, just go to sugaraddiction.com. I always say there's a quiz there, but if you get to sugaraddiction.com, you don't need to take the quiz.
Yeah.
Just download the book. It's free on the website and check it out. Yeah, I mean, you can find me. It's Sugar Free Man or Mike Collins, just sugar. I come up. So
That's very cool. I'll definitely include all of that in the show notes as well. And I encourage everybody, look, this is a free course, and any sort of content that is going to be helping you understand your relationship to sugar is also going to help you in your journey to get alcohol free. They're
yeah,
so intertwined. They're so related to the pleasure circuits, to self-medicating, to coping. And it's the same remedy is going to be learning how to take better care of ourselves, how to not use something outside of ourselves to
yeah,
try and make ourselves feel better. Life is inherently difficult, painful, uncomfortable, and we have to learn how to truly embrace self-care methods instead of using these things outside of ourselves. So,
yeah.
um, thank you. Is there one tip or fact you want to leave us with as we say our goodbyes?
Wow, that's a good one. I always say if you want to get off sugar, study fructose. And I know that sounds weird, but it's true. And you'll start to understand the subtle nuances of the science if you're kind of science based. But I think the more important part is this idea of um, you have to literally get unbrainwashed from the diet industry of eat less and exercise more. You have to understand that there is a brain and emotional life component to the recovery, to the change transformation process. Okay. If you can get that and grasp that and stick with it, um, and we used to call them sugar buddies, but it sounded too much like drinking buddies.
Yeah.
We changed it to sugar support buddies. So don't do it alone either. Just don't do it alone. It's even if you don't do it with me or you, do it with someone, a friend, a cousin, or whatever. Do it together.
I totally agree. And that is a science-backed method there. When you enroll other people in your mission, you have better outcomes. And so get in a community, get a buddy, invite someone to do this with you. Thank you so much for being here today, Mike, and finding me. And I wish you the very best. Enjoy the holidays.
All righty. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, team, you've just listened to an episode of Find Myself Free. And if some part of this left you wanting more, if your curiosity has been piqued and your intuition is telling you, I'm ready for more, I'm ready to look at my relationship to alcohol and find out just how much it's holding me back, then check out my coaching offers at findmyselffree.com. I offer the Brave course to kickstart your break on your own time, or you can hop on a call with me and talk about one-on-one coaching. I worked with a coach for 4 months at the start of my alcohol-free journey, and it made all the difference. Being able to talk to someone who knew what I was going through and could help me navigate my new world gave me a foundation of support I could build on. And it's a big reason why I'm a coach today. I want to help others find their freedom and level up their health. As always, if you like this episode, please like, follow, and share. And until next time, I'm with you. You got this.